and welcome to the second Disaster Recovery Grant Reporting, or DRGR, session number 2 webinar for the Rural Innovation Fund program. I'm Judy Mize, a desk officer in the Office of Community Renewal, or OCR, in CPD at HUD, and today I am joined by my fellow OCR desk officers. We want to thank you for joining us today. Also on today's training, we have the Office of Native American Programs, or ONAP, and Community Planning and Development, or CPD reps, and the RIF grantees. Questions will be accepted through the email account rifresponse@hud.gov. That's one word, rifresponse@hud.gov. There will be Q&A sessions at the end of each section so we can answer your submitted questions. Any questions that we're not able to get to today will be posted and either through direct follow-up with you or posted on the next updated FAQs. We have 3 sections today. In section 1, Robert Waters and I will provide a general overview of the previous FAQs, tracking leverage sources and funds, and admin cost. In section 2, Aaron Taylor will discuss Drawdown Model, main functions, and organization of the Grantee, field office, and OCR. Steps to drawdowns as shown on slide number 25, which will be upcoming, obligating funds, activity obligations, creating a voucher. In section 3, Lisa Peoples will talk about the grantee amendment process and the requirements for submitting and the justification for revisions or changes to your grant with HUD. Now I would like to go over those questions that we have received during previous training sessions, session number 1. And also those questions have been posted on HUD SharePoint site for the field offices and ONAP staff as of February 10th. So we're going to review 6 questions that were previously raised during session number 1 so that we can provide additional guidance. Question number 1. Are the DRGR screens depicted in the training PowerPoints applicable to the field office or to the grantees? That's a good question. Most of the screenshots apply to the grantees. The grantees are the only ones who can create or modify an action plan, request a drawdown, and create or modify a semi-annual report. CPD reps, ONAP GMS, and OCR staff have view-only access to DRGR, and we are unable to enter any grant information or data, and we can see only what the grantees have entered. OCR wants everyone to see all the grantee screenshots so that we're all aware of the steps to best assist you. Question number 2, does the environmental assessment need to be completed before approval of the action plan? That's another good question. The status of the environmental review is entered at the activity level during the creation of the action plan, which shows as either complete, underway, or exempt. An action plan may be approved and the funds unblocked prior to the completion of the environmental review. However, drawdown of funds will not be approved for activities with an underway status of the environmental assessment until the box status reads completed. So keep that in mind. Box must say completed. Other activities without a pending environmental assessment may access grant funds. Question number 3. How do I keep track of DRGR recertifications? And does DRGR have reminders when certification is about to expire? Well, there is no automatic generated email reminder sent to the users. If you have a certifying field office or grantee function, we recommend that you just go in and place a reminder on your calendar at the beginning of each month so you can go in to DRGR, check or update the user status certification. We wish there could be an automatic reminder, but there isn't. Next question. Is there a timeline for action plan submission? Grantees must have access to DRGR to create an action plan, and the grantee administrator be certified by the HUD CPD rep or ONAP GMS. Grantees, if you haven't gained access to DRGR, now is the time. You need to complete the DRGR account request spreadsheet, also assigning users to all your applicable rows, and then forward that information to your HUD CPD rep or your ONAP GMS, and gain DRGR certification for your grantee administrator. Funds are not unblocked until your action plan has been not only reviewed, but also approved by your HUD CPD rep or ONAP GMS and OCR here in headquarters. That's why the grantee user request forms and action plans are due as soon as you can get them in. Next question. Are grantees responsible for reporting data on every performance measure? Another good question. Performance measures are connected to the DRGR activity type. And I'm sure you'll remember from our previous training, there are 12 activity types. Since not all of your performance measures are going to apply to your activity, you as a grantee will not have data to report for every measure. We realize that. If your projected performance measure does not apply, or you know that you're going to have 0 to report, we ask you to still input a 0 in the data entry field as a placeholder, or to ensure that the measure shows up in the QPR module. You will be submitting semi-annual and annual reports which summarize drawdowns, expenditures, obligations, and your progress for reporting your semi-annual and annual reporting requirements. If you fail to enter 0 in the data entry field of the measure, then the grantee will have to modify their action plan in order to adjust for changes, and it's going to be very difficult to go back and try to amend your action plan later on. That's why we ask you in the very beginning to go ahead and enter those zeros in the entry fields
Thank you, Judy. I'll be picking up on question number 6 that we received. The question is, how are responsible organizations different from leverage partners? Responsible organizations are responsible for the implementation of a project or activity. Leverage partners provide additional funding but aren't necessarily responsible for the management of a project. Responsible organizations can also provide funding for an activity. In that case, you should also be sure the organization is included as a leverage partner. How are responsible organizations different from leverage partners? The assignment of responsible organizations should align with the materials from the approved RIF application. They can be added by clicking Add Responsible Organization in the DRGR Action Plan module. The responsible organizations entered will automatically populate when adding or editing a project or activity. Leveraging partners are the funding sources in the DRGR Action Plan. You can add funding sources on the Edit Action Plan screen. On the first page of the Add Activity screen, a list of funding sources will appear. Select from the list of funding sources that are applicable and enter the funding amount being contributed to the specific activity. These funds will be displayed under Other Funds. This is a screenshot of the Edit Action Plan screen in DRGR. If you're having trouble viewing this screenshot, we do have this PowerPoint presentation available to you. Please just email us at rifresponse@hud.gov if you need a copy of this presentation. The green box highlighted at the bottom of the screen lists the funding sources and will be displayed in this particular section. Additional funding sources can be added by clicking the appropriately titled button on the bottom of the screen. This is a screenshot of the Add Activity screen. When a grantee adds or edits an activity, all funding sources that have been previously entered will be displayed, as indicated by the red box on this particular screenshot. Each funding source will be checked by default, so it is important to check or uncheck the appropriate boxes under Matching Funds. You must then enter the amount of funds contributed to the specific activity. Dollar amounts next to the unchecked Matching Funds boxes will not be calculated in the Matching Funds subtotal. Admin costs are another data point that requires specific attention. Section IB1 of the Rural Innovation Fund NOFA indicates that there is a 10% cap on admin costs. Administrative costs means expenses for the general administration of the organization and costs that do not relate solely to the activities carried out by the grant. Activity delivery costs are not considered administrative costs. Costs for technical assistance or costs for specific expertise to carry out the program are not considered administrative costs and would be charged to the program as a technical assistance cost. Administrative costs for oversight of other programs, functions, or responsibilities not related to the Rural Innovation Fund grant are not allowed. The grantee should take care not to mix or attribute administrative costs to the direct project cost centers. Should the grantee's actual costs for overall management of the grant program exceed 10% of the total grant sum, those excess costs shall be paid for by the grantee. Admin costs include the grantee's overall grant management, coordination, monitoring, and evaluation. Specific activities are listed on the following 2 slides. salaries, wages, and related costs of the grantee staff or other staff engaged in the grantee's overall grant management activities are related to admin costs as well. Some grant management activities are listed on this slide, and they include, but aren't limited to, activities such as preparing grantee program budgets, schedules, and amendments, developing systems for assuring compliance with program requirements, monitoring partner activities for progress and compliance with program requirements, preparing presentations, reports, and other documents related to the program for submission to HUD. It also includes coordinating the resolution of overall grant audit and monitoring findings. Admin costs include travel costs incurred for official business in carrying out the overall grant management. Administrative services performed under third-party contracts or agreements for services directly applicable to grant management, such as legal services, accounting services, and audit services. It also includes other costs for goods and services required for and directly related to the overall management of the grant program. Under the Rural Innovation Fund program, administrative costs are the grantee's allowable costs for the overall management of the grant program. Please note that activity delivery costs are not considered administrative costs, as I said before. Activity delivery costs include both direct and indirect costs. Indirect costs are defined as costs that are not readily identifiable with a particular project or activity and are necessary for the general operation of the grantee organization and the implementation of its activities.
We're going to go ahead and move on to Section 2 of the DRGR Training Session 2. In this section, we're going to be covering a discussion of the Drawdown Module. In Training Session 1, we looked in more detail at the Action Plan module, and once the Action Plan is in and reviewed by your CPD rep or ONAP GMS, and additionally reviewed by the Office of Community Renewal, then you'll be available to draw down funds and create vouchers in the Drawdown module. In the previous training session, we went over the 5 basic modules in DRGR. The Drawdown module has primary functions for all Rural Innovation Fund program participants. For the grantee, they're focused on requesting and reviewing vouchers for grant award drawdowns. The grantee admin has an additional function to block drawdowns if they need to have further revision on a voucher. The field office can view drawdown activity, and the Office of Community Renewal will be reviewing and approving drawdown requests and the vouchers submitted by the Rural Innovation Fund grantees. The drawdowns is extremely important because this is where you're managing all your grant dollars and the financial aspects of your Rural Innovation Fund grant by submitting, editing, and viewing vouchers. In the link of the PowerPoint, which we'll make available through the Rural Innovation Fund SharePoint site and by email if needed, is a link to the Drawdown Module training guidance that's provided on the DRGR website. If you did do a web search engine search with DRGR, it would be the first link, and at the bottom of that web page would be resources for training on all 5 DRGR modules. So as I emphasized on the previous slide, all the financial transactions take place in the Drawdown module. Most importantly, grantees do their obligation of funds. They create, revise, approve, and reject vouchers and voucher line items, and they can check on the status of a voucher request and view previously approved vouchers. When you request access for DRGR, you designate different types of DRGR users. For instance, there's a request drawdown user, and they're responsible for creating the voucher and committing the money through the activity obligation to the activities outlined in your DRGR action plan. The approved drawdown user will view the voucher created by the request drawdown user and approve it. After their approval, it would go to OCR for final approval and then into locks, so the money would be given into your account. The grantee administrator does have a secondary revision capability, and they can block any drawdowns put forth by the request drawdown user. Here is a quick diagram showing the basic steps of the drawdown, and we're going to break these down further and show individual screenshots from DRGR. And again, as Robert has mentioned in the first section, if you're having any trouble viewing the screenshots, we will have the PowerPoint available for you to use and inspect the screenshots with further detail. So step one in the drawdown process is the obligation of funds. So in this case, you're taking grant award dollars and putting them into the activities that you've budgeted in your DRGR action plan. After you've obligated funds, you want to create and submit a drawdown voucher, and this is done by the request drawdown user at the grantee level. And then there's a grantee review process that's done by the grantee approved drawdown user. And on the fourth step, there's HUD's review through the Office of Community Renewal, where the Office of Community Renewal will be reviewing the vouchers and confirming that the dollar requests are in line with the DRGR action plan and all the components that have been inputted by the grantee. Finally, the vouchers will be sent to locks for final approval, and the money would be available at that point for the grantees to use to complete their activities. So starting from step one, the obligation of funds, a grantee has to obligate funds in DRGR in order to commit dollars, so this is the program fund dollars, to an activity. These activities were created and developed in your action plan, and that same framework will be used throughout DRGR in your grant reporting process as you use the drawdown module and as you use the QPR module to do your semi-annual and annual reports. Obligations cannot exceed the amount that you have budgeted for the activity in your action plan, so you only have as much money available to obligate to an activity as you've budgeted in your action plan. Funds must be obligated prior to creating the voucher because you have to have money available for the activity in order to create a voucher to draw down money against that activity. Just again to reiterate, if you cannot see the screens, the PowerPoints will be made available after the presentation, and you'll be able to inspect them in further detail. In this screen, you can see the activity application, and here you would search the activities that you have created in your DRGR action plan using the search activity function on the left-hand column under the activity obligation menu. And then in the purple box, you would hit maintain on the activities that you would like to adjust the obligation. And on this screen, this is where you would move money from the grant award and you would obligate it to a specific activity. And you can see on the 4 different categories, it shows the amount of money available, the amount of money that's been obligated, and the amount of money that's in the grant award. And you'd follow the buttons in the green box to obligate funds and return to the previous search menu. After you have obligated funds, then you will have money available to create a voucher. A voucher is an electronic payment request that's sent from DRGR to locks. A single voucher can obtain program requests or program fund requests for multiple activities. So that means when you do a voucher, you can select multiple activities and create the funds request all at one time. After the voucher is created and made available, it would go to approval first at the grantee level through the request drawdown user, and then to the HUD level at the Office of Community Renewal. Only grantees with a request drawdown role may create vouchers. And again, the approved drawdown role are the people that are approving the vouchers created by the request drawdown user. Creating a voucher is done under the drawdown menu on the left navigational column. You would select Create Vouchers, and you would use this function to search for activities that you would like to add to the voucher. Here, once you clicked Select Activities, you'll get a list of the activities under your grant, and you can use the checkboxes in the red circled box to select the activities specifically that you would like to add to the voucher, and then you can use the button in the green box to return to the previous menu and move forward with creating the voucher. On the Create Voucher page 1, you would select where the funds are coming from. Once you have created a semi-annual report, certain grantees may have program income available from which they can draw, but as you can see in the blue box, all of these activities are creating drawdowns that would take funds from the program funds or the grant award dollars. The additional drawdowns are the program income that would be made available for those grantees who are accruing program income through their activities. On page 2 of the Create Vouchers, you would enter the actual dollar amount of funds that you would want to draw down for each activity. In the column next to the drawdowns, you can see that it lists the amount available. So this is the money left over from the obligation that hasn't already been drawn down. You're not allowed to draw down more money than you have available obligated to that activity. Once you've entered the values in which you want to draw down for a specific activity, then you can move forward to the Create Voucher page 3 screen. On this screen, it'll show all the information you've entered, so the activities you've selected, the amount of money you want to draw down, and it'll show it by line item. This is a view-only screen. You can't do any edits, but it's a preview of what your voucher request will look like. By hitting the button in the green box, you'll confirm that the voucher is correct, and you want to have it reviewed by your grantee approved drawdown user. The final page 4 screen is a receipt of the voucher that's just been created, and it shows all the drawdown requests by activity and a line item status. And this is a confirmation receipt that the information has gone to review and will be available to the approved drawdown user. So the view and reviewing drawdowns. Drawdown requests can be viewed by any DRGR user for the grants in which they have access. Drawdown requests can be individually reviewed and revised or canceled by the line item. So you don't have to go into a voucher and redo it all over again. You can edit individual line items from the approved drawdown user level. If you had a change in your status, if there was a hold-up in activity and you needed to change the amount of funds and adjust on the fly. Grantee users with a drawdown reviewer role must review and approve drawdown requests prior to going to the HUD OCR approval level. And remember that grantee admin users have the ability to block vouchers if they go back and view a voucher and decide that they're not happy with how the line items have been created. When we look at it in DRGR, you would go to the Search Voucher screen using the left navigational menu under the Drawdown Module, and you would see a list of all the pending vouchers. So this would keep a history of all vouchers that have been approved, but would also give you the functions to view and revise existing vouchers and vouchers pending approval. This is an additional view of how you would look at a voucher from a line item standpoint. So once you've selected a voucher, this is the screen that you would get to individually revise, review, or edit specific line items. That way, you wouldn't have to go back to the request drawdown user, and start the voucher process all over again. Finally, this is an additional screen showing the different maintain voucher functions and what's available to people who have a review, a drawdown approve or drawdown review role and have the ability to assess a drawdown voucher and make edits or determine if it's valid and in line with the action plan activities and the way the action plan has been developed. So just as a summary to go through what we went over in this drawdown module, the keys to successful management of the drawdown module is to stick to your action plan number one. You created the action plan, you made budgets, and you know how the money needs to be spent. So you need to follow the format that you've created and outlined in your action plan and use that to inform how your drawdowns and vouchers will be created. Always remember to obligate funds prior to creating a voucher because you have to have the money available in order to assign it to a line item or an activity in a voucher. Double check your math and make sure you've done your obligations, make sure you have the amount available, and make sure it matches the dollar amount that you need to complete the activities at the time in which you create the voucher. And finally, know your role. There's request drawdown users, there's approved drawdown users, and there's grantee admins, all at the grantee level. These people have specific abilities to use the drawdown module. One can create the drawdown, and others can review and revise the drawdown vouchers. So remember your roles, communicate with each other, and you should be able to move through the process rather fluidly. And again, for more extensive and detailed information on the drawdown module, a link has been put in to go to the drawdown module training document that's available on the DRGR homepage. And we're going to move on to section 3.
I'm Lisa Peoples. I'm a desk officer in the Office of Community Renewal. I'm presenting the last portion of the training, section 3, which will address the amendment process and provide an overview along with the steps and requirements needed to submit an amendment request. The next slide is the grantee amendment process. Amendment requests must be submitted to your CPD representative or your ONAP grants management specialist. The request needs to include a detailed description of the requested change along with a reason for the change. The field office is the first contact and confirms that the grantee has submitted the appropriate information. The field office contacts OCR and sends the request to OCR to review. OCR is responsible for the final approval of all amendment requests. The amendment request process is a collaboration between the headquarters and the field office. Again, OCR will have the responsibility for the review and final approval of all RIF grantees' amendment requests for their grants. The next slide is what justifies an amendment request. An amendment request is needed if there is a change in a grantee name and/or address, if there is a change in the grantee organization, if there is a change in the activity of the project, and also if there's an increase or decrease within the grantee's budget for more than 10%. This slide is modifications to other grant activities, material changes. Material changes tend to be more significant and definitely require HUD approval. Several examples of material changes are provided on this slide for your review. If a grantee has a change in the site location of a project, or the number of participants served, or the time of the grant term, or a change in proposed activities, an amendment request is required. Therefore, aside from the amendments to the grant agreement, RIF grantees may request modifications that would include material changes to their applications, but not incorporated into the grant agreement. An amendment request is definitely necessary. In our next training, OCR will provide a follow-up from any pending questions from this training and cover the QPR module along with the semi-annual reporting process. If you have questions, please send them to the RIF response mailbox, which is RIF, the word response, at HUD.gov. And just would like to thank you for your participation and attending the RIF DRGR training session 2. Thank you.